37 million people are crammed into the most densely lit metropolis on Earth, Tokyo, Japan. Stand at Shibuya Crossing today and watch 3,000 people cross the street every 2 minutes, surrounded by the neon glow of the largest city in human history. Now go back 600 years to this exact spot. It is a swamp, a wet, saltwater marsh at the edge of Tokyo Bay, buzzing with insects, home to maybe 100 fishermen living in huts on stilts. But here is what no one tells you. Between that swamp and today's skyline lie 7 major earthquakes, 2 near-total infernos, the deadliest urban firebombing in human history, that killed nearly 100,000 people, and at least 3 complete rebuilds from rubble. Using original maps, period woodblock prints, and AI reconstructed imagery, you're about to witness exactly how a fishing village at the edge of the known world survives every attempt to destroy it. The real question isn't how Tokyo was built, it's how many times it had to be built again. Let's go back to where it all began. Geography is destiny, and Tokyo's geography is a problem. The city sits on a flat, marshy lowland, squeezed between the Musashino Plateau to the west and Tokyo Bay to the east. The Sumida River cuts it in half. For centuries, the powerful clans in Kyoto and Kamakura look at this eastern swamp and see nothing useful. It isn't defensible high ground. It isn't particularly fertile. It is just mud. But soldiers need to cross the river. That is why, around 1180, a minor warrior named Edo Shiganaga builds a small fort here. It sits almost exactly where the imperial palace's east gardens are today. Around it, a thin settlement grows. Fishermen trade small catches from the bay. Buddhist monks establish the Sensoji Temple at Asakusa in 628 AD, a structure that today receives 30 million visitors a year, but for 300 years remained surrounded by reeds and mosquitoes. The population hovers between 1,000 and 3,000 people. It is barely a town. Everything is built from timber, bamboo, and thatch, materials that rot in the wet spring and burn in the dry summer. When droughts push temperatures above 38 degrees Celsius, the riverside reeds turn into kindling. Then, in 1457, a warlord named Ota Dokan decides the swamp needs a proper anchor. He builds the first Edo castle on the one elevated spot available, a small hill overlooking the river delta, 13 watchtowers, a moat fed directly from the Hirakawa River, walls of packed earth faced with stone. For a swamp fortress, it is impressive, but stone walls can't stop politics. 3 generations later, rival clans absorb the Ota family. The castle changes hands twice. By 1524, the original compound is partially torn down. The first version of Tokyo is already in ruins, before most of Europe has even heard the word Japan. For 60 years, the castle rots. After the Ota clan falls, the stone watchtowers are left to the elements. Weeds crack the flagstones. The moat chokes on silt. While provincial lords fight massive civil wars across the Kanto plain, Edo Castle changes hands like a bargaining chip. Strategically useful, but not valuable. The town below never grows past 5,000 people. It is a garrison, not a city. Even the name is forgettable. Edo. Literally, estuary gate. It is a fisherman's direction, like saying the wet place by the river mouth. That humble descriptive name will stick for 300 years, long after the city becomes the most powerful in Asia. It won't earn the title Tokyo Eastern Capital until 1868. The power shift arrives in 1590. Tokugawa Ieyasu, the most calculating strategist in Japanese history, is offered a deal by the country's unifier, Toyotomi Hideyoshi. Hideyoshi offers Ieyasu the 8 provinces of the Kanto region. It looks like a reward. In reality, it is a trap. It is a way to banish a dangerous rival to a mosquito-infested swamp far from the imperial court in Kyoto. Ieyasu takes the trap. He rides into the crumbling Edo castle on August 1st, 1590. He looks at the mudflats, the rotting towers, and the vast marshland. He doesn't see a prison. He sees a blank canvas. he launches the most ambitious urban project Japan has ever seen. He doesn't repair the city, he erases the geography itself. He redirects rivers to change their flow. He shaves down mountains to fill in the bay. The chaos of the Ghost Era ends instantly. It is replaced by one man's violent will to build. Edo Castle isn't just a fortress, it is a statement, rebuilt by the Tokugawa shogunate between 1600 and 1640. The main keep towers 58 meters over the city, taller than anything in Europe at the time except the greatest cathedrals. The moat system isn't just a ditch, it is a 15-kilometer spiral of water. The compound covers 1.7 square kilometers. To control the country, the shogun forces every powerful lord in Japan to maintain a residence here and live under the shadow of that tower for alternating years. It is house arrest disguised as hospitality. Ieyasu builds in stone and cypress what he cannot leave to trust. By 1700, the strategy works too well. Edo swells to 1 million people, making it the largest city on earth, bigger than London, bigger than Beijing. It is dense, hierarchical, and fatal. While the samurai live in the hills, the commoners, the merchants and artisans, are packed into the shitamachi, the low city. Here, wooden row houses are squeezed so tight that neighbors can hear each other breathe through the paper walls. The streets turn to black mud when it rains. There is no central sewage. Night soil collectors move through the alleys before dawn, but the smell never leaves. The entire eastern half of the city is essentially a massive pile of dry timber, paper screens, and thatch, packed with 600,000 people. It is a tinderbox waiting for a spark. The spark arrives on January 18, 1657. According to legend, a Buddhist monk at the Honmyoji temple starts a small fire to ritually burn a cursed kimono that had belonged to 3 young women who died in succession. The wind that day is howling at 60 kilometers per hour. The fire jumps the temple wall in minutes. It burns for 3 days. 108,000 people die. 2/3 of Edo turns to ash. The castle's magnificent main keep, the symbol of Tokugawa power that took 40 years to build, burns down to its stone foundations on the second night. It is never rebuilt. If you visit the Imperial Palace East Gardens today, you can still see the scorched foundation stones, sitting exactly where the fire left them in 1657. The shogunate responds with a master plan. They widen the streets to create fire breaks. They ban thatch roofs in favor of tile. They clear the slums. For 15 years, the rebuilt Edo is orderly. Then the people move back in. The alleys fill up. The wooden shacks return. By 1700, the city is exactly as combustible as before. Between 1600 and 1868, Edo suffers a major fire, meaning more than 20% of the city is destroyed, 97 times. The residents eventually stop fighting it and develop a dark culture of acceptance. Quick evacuation, total material loss, rapid rebuild. They even give the fires a poetic name, Edo no Hana, the flowers of Edo. In this city, destruction isn't a disaster, it's a bloom. In 1800, Tokyo, still called Edo, holds about 1.1 million people. By 1900, it's 1.8 million. By 1940, 6.7 million. The numbers aren't just statistics. They're the sound of a city exploding. It starts on July 8, 1853, when American Commodore Matthew Perry sails 4 black steam-powered warships, the Japanese call them Kurofune, the black ships, into Edo Bay and demands Japan open its ports to foreign trade. The sight of those ships moving against the wind without sails does more to end the medieval city than 97 fires combined. The shogunate signs the Convention of Kanagawa on March 31, 1854. Within 14 years, the samurai class is abolished, the emperor is restored to power, and the capital formally moves from Kyoto to Tokyo. What follows is infrastructure built at a pace that still seems reckless. Within just 2 decades, Japan's first railway line opens between Shimbashi and Yokohama. Telegraph lines snake across the hills. Gas lamps light the Ginza district. A brick commercial quarter rises along the main streets, the first non-wooden neighborhood in the city's history. But behind the brick facades, the old Shitamachi is still mostly wooden, still mostly poor, and still waiting. At 11:58 a.m. on September 1st, 1923, the waiting ends. The Great Kanto earthquake hits at magnitude 7.9. The shaking lasts 4 minutes and 7 seconds, but it strikes at lunchtime, when every charcoal and gas stove in the wooden Shitamachi is lit for the midday meal. Fires ignite simultaneously from 130 points across the city. The wind is 40 kilometers per hour from the south. Within 6 hours, the firestorms merge into a single wall moving north through the densest residential quarters in the world. 142,000 people die. 381,000 buildings burn. In the Honjo district, 38,000 people take shelter in an open military depot the size of 2 city blocks and die together when the firestorm reaches them. In 4 days, 60% of Tokyo is gone. So they rebuild. They widen the streets. They pour concrete. By 1930, Tokyo is functionally whole again. They believe they have finally fireproofed the city. They are wrong. On the night of March 9, 1945, the United States Air Force sends 334 B-29 Superfortress bombers over Tokyo, carrying 1,665 tons of incendiary bombs. The target isn't military infrastructure. The target is the wooden residential city. General Curtis LeMay lowers the bombing altitude from 8,000 meters to 2,000 meters to increase accuracy. He removes defensive guns to allow heavier bomb loads. In 6 hours, 15.8 square miles burn. The temperature at ground level in the Sumida River district reaches an estimated 980 degrees Celsius. 100,000 people die in a single night, March 9th to March 10th, 1945. It's the deadliest conventional bombing raid in history. When the sun rises on March 10th, the Shitamachi, the ancient low city that had burned and rebuilt for 300 years, is flat gray ash as far as anyone can see. For the third time in its history, Tokyo is rubble requiring a complete rebuild from the ground up. In August 1945, the silence over Tokyo is deafening. The population has plummeted from 6.7 million to just 2.7 million. The rest have fled to the countryside or are dead. The capital of an empire that stretched from Manchuria to Micronesia is now just scorched concrete foundations administered by a foreign army. General Douglas MacArthur sets up his occupation headquarters in the Daiichi Life Insurance Building, one of the few structures left standing, overlooking the Imperial Palace. From that office, they rewrite the country. A new constitution, the breakup of feudal land cartels, universal education, all implemented within 5 years. Then, in 1950, a different war saves the economy. The Korean War breaks out nearby, and American military contracts pour billions of dollars into Japanese factories. It is the spark the city needs. By 1955, Japan's GDP is back to pre-war levels. By 1968, it is the second largest economy on Earth. But this time, Tokyo doesn't rebuild in wood, it builds in steel, glass, and concrete. And it builds for a deadline, the 1964 Summer Olympics. To get ready, the city goes into overdrive. They construct 145 kilometers of new expressways in just 4 years. Because there is no land left on the ground, they build the roads in the sky, stacking highways over rivers and existing streets, creating the multi-layered cyberpunk aesthetic of modern Tokyo. On October 1, 1964, the opening day of the Games, the Shinkansen bullet train departs Tokyo Station at 210 kilometers per hour. The message is clear: the wooden city is gone. The high-tech metropolis has arrived. The fishermen who built huts here 600 years ago would recognize nothing of this skyline. The 634-meter skytree, visible from 70 kilometers away, the neon canyons of Shinjuku, where 3.5 million passengers pass through a single station every day, the artificial islands of Odaiba, built entirely from landfill dumped into the bay where Perry's black ships once anchored. But they would recognize the logic underneath it all. Find the crossing, control the crossing, and when it burns, build it again. Tokyo is a place that forgets and remembers in the same breath. It tears down a 30-year-old apartment block to build a skyscraper, yet preserves a 1,400-year-old temple gate 50 meters away. That is the city's thesis. That is the argument it has been making since a minor warlord looked at a swamp and decided it was worth something. If you made it all the way to the end, thank you. These films aren't quick to make. Every frame is built from old maps, surviving artwork, historical records, and careful reconstruction to make sure what you're seeing feels grounded in reality. Tokyo's story isn't just dramatic, it's layered, fragile, and rebuilt again and again. If this kind of deep historical reconstruction is something you want more of, support the channel by subscribing. That's what allows projects like this to keep happening. And tell me below, if we could step back in time anywhere next, where should we go?